This incident took place about 100 years ago. On the 30th of January, 1925, in Kentucky State, USA, a cave explorer named Floyd Collins entered a cave to explore it. The entrance of the cave was extremely narrow, so narrow that a person could enter only by crawling. The cave was pitch dark, so Floyd carried a lantern as he moved ahead. As he kept crawling deeper, Floyd reached a point that was nearly impossible for anyone to cross. The passage had become so tight that entering it was extremely difficult. Most people who explored this cave would reach this point and return. That's why this point was named Turn Around. To move ahead, Floyd had to squeeze through a 9-inch hole. But Floyd wanted to reach the far end of the cave, so he slid into the hole and crawled forward. Further inside, the cave began to widen until Floyd finally reached a crystal chamber, the room he was searching for. Finding the crystal chamber made Floyd extremely happy. This chamber could make him rich. Now he began to return. To get out, he had to pass the same tight section again. While dragging himself forward, Floyd's lantern slipped from his hand, crashed, and broke, plunging the cave into total darkness. Floyd was still 55 feet underground, stuck in a narrow passage, but he didn't panic. He had faced such darkness before. He continued pushing forward using his feet. When suddenly a loose rock slipped and fell onto his foot. Floyd struggled hard to free himself, but that rock wedged itself firmly into the tight passage. All attempts to pull out his foot failed. He screamed for help, but at that depth, no one could hear him. Cold water was slowly dripping and flowing beneath him. And so, in that lonely, dark cave, a battle between life and death began for Floyd Collins. The story of Floyd Collins became one of the most dramatic events in American history. He was trapped in the Kentucky cave, and rescuers tried various methods to reach him. In the 1920s, digging for underground caves had become a trend in America. People would dig their fields hoping to find tunnels. If a cave was found, it would turn into a tourist attraction where visitors paid to explore it. Floyd and his brother also dug up their entire field and were lucky enough to find a cave. But the cave was far from the main road, so tourists preferred caves closer to the road. Their cave failed to attract visitors. To solve this, Floyd partnered with the owner of a roadside cave. He would maintain the cave and guide visitors, and in return, he would earn a share of the income. Before starting the job, Floyd wanted to explore the cave completely. He knew about the turnaround point, beyond which no one went. Crystal caves were extremely valuable because they were formed from limestone over thousands of years. Floyd took his lantern and entered the cave, unaware that he was walking into the most dangerous fight of his life. As I explained earlier, while returning, Floyd's foot got stuck under a rock. He screamed for help for hours. After 24 hours, the cave owner arrived and saw Floyd's coat and hat outside the cave. Realizing Floyd was inside, he crawled into the cave and finally heard Floyd's faint cries. He immediately informed Floyd's family. Floyd's brother, Homer, entered the cave and after hours of crawling, reached Floyd. He gave him sandwiches and coffee and examined the situation. Homer tried to widen the tight passage using a hammer and chisel, but hitting the walls caused cracks. There was a huge risk that the cave might collapse and crush Floyd. So this plan failed. By now, Floyd had been trapped for 46 hours. The cave was so narrow he couldn't even turn his body. Crowds of people gathered outside the cave. Yet no one had the courage to crawl through the 9-inch hole except Homer. After 71 hours, a daring reporter squeezed through the tiny passage just to interview Floyd. He immediately informed Floyd's family. Floyd's brother, Homer, entered the cave and after hours of crawling, reached Floyd. He gave him sandwiches and coffee and examined the situation. Homer tried to widen the tight passage using a hammer and chisel, but hitting the walls caused cracks. There was a huge risk that the cave might collapse and crush Floyd. So this plan failed. By now, Floyd had been trapped for 46 hours. The cave was so narrow he couldn't even turn his body. Crowds of people gathered outside the cave. Yet no one had the courage to crawl through the 9-inch hole except Homer. After 71 hours, a daring reporter squeezed through the tiny passage just to interview Floyd. He came out and published the story, and it immediately went viral. Thousands gathered around the cave. It looked like a festival. After 80 hours, rescuers tried pulling Floyd out with a rope. But the rock held his foot tightly. Floyd screamed in pain and begged them to stop before his body tore apart. This rescue plan also failed. More than 100 hours passed. Over 10,000 people gathered above the cave. A bulb was placed inside the cave to keep Floyd warm. But time was running out. After 115 hours, Floyd's condition worsened. A rescue team arrived and noticed the ground above the cave was shaking because of the crowd's weight. Inside, small rocks began falling, forcing the rescuer to back out quickly. Floyd realized he might not survive. He asked the rescuer for water, but since water was flowing beneath him, he had been drinking that same water for days. The rescuer understood Floyd's intention. Floyd didn't want to die alone and wanted someone else to stay with him. The rescuer rushed out. And at that moment, the cave collapsed, completely sealing Floyd off. Food could no longer reach him. All communication was cut off. A new plan was made: dig a vertical shaft from above. But digging with machines was risky because vibrations could cause another collapse. So they dug by hand, a slow process. It was estimated to take 30 hours, but reality was different. Floyd had now been trapped for 220 hours. The digging that should have taken 30 hours had already taken 140 hours and was still not complete. Floyd had been fighting for his life for 15 days. Suddenly, the bulb stopped working. They could no longer tell whether Floyd was alive. Finally, on the 18th day, they reached him. Homer climbed down the shaft. But Floyd was no longer alive. He had lost his final battle. The rock that trapped his foot weighed just 27 kilograms, and it wasn't even a stone, just hardened soil. But the passage was so tight that he couldn't break it or push it away. It felt as if that piece of earth had been waiting for Floyd for centuries. As Floyd Collins took his final breath beneath the earth, the world above continued to wait, hoping, praying, that he would return alive. But fate had already written a different ending. When rescuers finally reached the crystal chamber, the sight broke every heart present. The man who had inspired an entire nation, who had kept fighting for 18 long days, was lying still, covered in the same darkness he had once explored with excitement. The crowd outside fell silent. Newspapers that once printed hopeful headlines now carried the tragic news. Floyd Collins is gone. Yet something extraordinary happened next. Even in death, Floyd became a legend. His story spread across America like wildfire. People who had never met him felt as if they knew him. For weeks, thousands visited the site where he had fought alone beneath the earth. Some came to pray. Some came to pay respect. And some came simply because Floyd's courage had touched them deeply. But Floyd's journey didn't end there. The cave where he died soon turned into one of the biggest attractions of its time. Visitors lined up to see the very spot where Floyd had been trapped. And with every person who entered that cave, his name echoed once more. Years passed. But the mystery and pain surrounding his death only grew stronger. Historians say that Floyd Collins changed the way America viewed cave exploration forever. Rescue teams learned new methods. New safety rules were created. And his tragedy became a lesson for generations. Some people believe that Floyd's spirit still guards those dark tunnels. Not with fear, but with the same passion and curiosity he carried all his life. Because for Floyd, caves were not just empty spaces underground. They were living worlds waiting to be discovered. And maybe, just maybe, Floyd didn't lose his life for nothing. He became the very legend he wanted to be. He once searched for a treasure made of crystals. But in the end, his story became the real treasure. A story that continues to shine brighter than any crystal chamber. So, friends, as we end this tale of courage, struggle, and fate, remember one thing. Heroes are not just those who win. Heroes are also those who fight till their very last breath. If you want to watch the next unbelievable survival story, Tap the video that's appearing on your screen right now, because the next journey begins from here.